So today we would be looking at the linear layout, relative layout, frame layout. So these are different kinds of layout which are available in Android. So what is meant by layout? We will be seeing shortly. Then we would be looking at few of the widgets. So some of those widgets are web view. So web view widget is used for loading the web pages. Then we would be taking the look at the checkbox. So checkbox is so you must have seen checkbox and radio buttons a lot of times on the websites, on the different mobile applications. So we would be integrating similar widgets in our application. Then we would be looking at spinner. So spinner is also called as the drop-down menu. So drop-down is like, let's say you are creating an application and you want to let user to select the country where he stays. So we would not expect user to type the country name. Rather, we would give him the drop-down from where he can choose the country name. And same is true for the autocomplete text view. So autocomplete text view you would normally see in the contact application. So whenever you want to make a call to your friend, so you would not type entire name. So you would just type some initials, and it automatically will give you the suggestions. And from that you will select your friend's name. So that kind of widgets we will implement. Then we will be taking a look at card view. So card view is a new widget which has been introduced in Lollipop. So it is just a look and feel that you can give to your applications. And then finally, last but not the least, we will be taking a look at time picker dialog and the date picker dialog. So time picker dialog and the date picker dialog are the widgets which helps you to select date and time. So whenever you want user to enter current date and current time, or the desired date or desired time, you would be giving him a widget from where he can select the date and time. That kind of widget we will be seeing. Let's look at what is a layout. Okay, so as per the definition, the layout defines the UI which is associated with the activity and presented to the user. So what happens is, so whenever your activity is launched, so associated layout file is shown to the user. So user don't see the code which you have written, rather he will just see the UI. So what happens is, so whenever you start dragging the widgets on your screen, you cannot directly drag them on the screen. First you will have to drag a layout, and widgets will reside under the layout. So you can say the layout is like a parent container in which your widgets will be get added. I got a question from Kiran. While installation, I didn't get performance Intel hacks. Whether it is required? So Kiran, if your emulator is starting, then I would say it is not required. But in case while starting the emulator, if you are getting that requirement, then you would have to install the Intel Hacks Manager. Okay. So every activity has got the layout file, and there is a simple rule. If you want to add the widgets inside the layout, in the UI, so you would first drag a layout, and then inside that you will drag the widgets. So we have got the different kinds of layout, so those we will see in the today's program. Okay, so let me check if my SIG is all set up or not. Okay, so the very first layout that is in the list, it is called as the linear layout. So what is a linear layout? So I would say linear layout is the simplest of all the layouts which are present in Android. So that's why we have kept the linear layout as the first choice. So linear layout works on the very simple principle. So let's say you have got the requirement in your application where you want to add the contents either in vertical manner or in the horizontal manner. Okay, so let's say you want to add 4 buttons, and you want to add those 4 buttons one below each other. So what you can do is you can create a linear layout, and you can set the orientation as vertical. So if I create a linear layout and if I set the property as orientation property as vertical, then what will happen? Whatever controls you will add inside the linear layout, those will get added in the vertical manner. So as similar to that, if you want your children to get added in the horizontal fashion, so what you would be doing? You would be creating a linear layout, and you will set the Android orientation to the horizontal. So that's pretty simple layout. So the Android linear layout is preferred when you want to create a simple layout. I would say, let's say you want to create a login activity in which you want to have 2 text fields below one another. So you would be having username text field, below that you will be having the password text field, below that you will be having a login button, and below that you will have the reset button. So you can imagine how simple that layout is. So what I can do in that case, I will create first linear layout with the orientation as vertical. Then I will add those 4 controls in that linear layout. So what will happen? All those 4 controls will get added inside the layout in the vertical fashion. Okay, so that is the concept of the linear layout. So this is a preview of how the linear layout looks like. So as you can see over here, we are having the linear layout. We are setting the width as match parent. We are setting the height as wrap content, and we are setting the orientation as horizontal. So I'm adding those buttons, button 1, button 2, and button 3. So if I copy paste this particular code snippet in my layout underscore main.xml, so how, and if I launch that application on the device, how those buttons will look like on the screen. So you guys can see what we have done is we have created a linear layout, but we have specified the orientation as horizontal. So what will happen is those buttons will not get added one below each other, but rather they will get added in one single row, one beside each other. So I will have button 1, beside that I will have button 2, and beside that I will have button 3. So that Android orientation attribute is very important. So if the orientation attribute is horizontal, it means your controls will get added in the horizontal fashion. If your orientation attribute is the vertical, it means your controls will get added in the vertical fashion. Okay, so pretty simple. You just look at the orientation property and you can just identify how those controls will get added. So let me show you that particular thing practically. So yes, I would be taking the practical example. So what I'll do is I will be opening a project. So what I will be doing is I already have one project with me, and even I'm going to share those code snippets with you. So what you have to do is, so whenever you will be downloading the code snippets, so what you have to do, you have to open the Android Studio and you have to click on Open an Existing Android Studio Project. So after you click on that, you have to point out to that particular example which I have shared with you. So right now the example resides in div drive inside class 2 sample codes. So there I am going to click on the linear layout. Okay, so after clicking on linear layout, I will just press OK. So what it will do, it will import that project. Okay, so it will take a couple of minutes to set up that project. So what I did, I clicked on Open Project, and I'm pointing to the project which I have shared with you. So once you point onto that, so what it is doing, it is now loading that project in the Android Studio. So it takes some time because when it loads the project, it also compiles that. So that's why it takes some time. Okay, so as you can see, Gradle sync is in progress. So as you can see over here, so I have created a linear layout, but I have made it little bit complex just to give you the idea on how complex layout can become. Okay, so I will wait for that Gradle processing to get finished. So basically what it is doing is it is compiling your project. So we would just wait for a couple of minutes till it gets finished. So one more thing you have to remember is, so you can have layout inside layout. So layout is also one kind of children. So let's say you have created a root layout, which is the vertical layout, and inside that now you want to add one more layout which will have the orientation as horizontal. Okay, so as you can see over here, what is going to happen is my root layout is the vertical layout. So I will have button 1, below that I will have button 2, below that I will have button 3, and below that I will have one more linear layout with the horizontal orientation which will have 3 more buttons. So you can imagine you will have 3 buttons, one below each other, and below that you will have 3 buttons which will be in a single row because you are having the nested linear layout. So below that horizontal layout, I am having one more linear layout with the horizontal orientation. Okay, so let me run this program first so you will get the clear picture on how the linear layout works. Okay, so very first time when you will open the Android Studio and when you will try to import the project, it will take some time, but on the subsequent occasions, it would not take that time. And Shanti, there is no such concept of default layout. So unfortunately, no, there is no such concept as the default layout. You have to create at least one layout in Android. Okay, and one more thing you will see over here. So it is giving me the error, fail to find the build tools. So this error occurs when, let's say, so yesterday I created this program with the earlier version of Android SDK, but today we have updated our build tools and the Android SDK. So what happens is sometimes when you try to import the project in the newer version, which was created in older version, so what you have to do is, so carefully see what I'm doing. So if you are importing the older projects, so you have to go into that build.gradle. So what I'm doing is I'm going into the build.gradle file. I will open it and I'm going to change the build tool SDK version over here. So you can see now currently that build tool version is 21.1.2. So what I'll do is I'll go into the SDK manager and I will check what is my build tool SDK version. So whatever latest SDK version I have installed, I will copy paste that version here so that that error will go away. Okay, so I will just wait till that indexing is finished. So the indexing is finished. Let's go into the tools. I will go into the Android and I will go into the SDK manager just to check what is the latest version of build tool I am having. So yesterday I did update some of the build tools where update available message was there. So let's open the Android SDK and you can see, so we have got the Android SDK build tool having version as 22.0.1. Okay, so you can see I'm having the build tool SDK version as 22.0.1. But now what problem will happen is, so whatever projects I will import, in every project I will have to change that build tool version to 22.0.1. So just to support the older projects which I have created with earlier version of build tools, what you can do is you can install the earlier version of build tool also. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll install the 21.1.2 also. So the reason I'm installing it because, so in that way you would also support the projects which are created in earlier version of Android Studio. But I would recommend you should not follow this practice in the real world environment. So you should always update your project to the latest version of build tools. So here I'm just making my project compatible with the earlier versions also. So I will keep those multiple build tools over there. Okay, so now I have got 21.12 installed. So now my project should sync without any issue. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that SDK manager and I'm going to click on that top icon over there. So that icon you can see over there, it is the sync icon. So it will again try to rebuild the project. So I will click on that icon and what it will do, it will again try to sync your project so that that error will go away basically. Okay, so that that rebuilding is will be finished. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this application on my Android mobile. So you can see the output, how it looks like. Okay, so at the bottom panel it is saying Gradle executing task. It means it is compiling your project. Okay, and finally the execution is finished. So let's run this program on the mobile. So I will press that green icon. So what it is going to do, it is going to check for any connected device. So I have connected my mobile. So what it is going to do, it is going to launch that application on my mobile. So in the meantime, let's have a look at the preview and the layout_xml. Okay. So as you can see over here, so what we have done is we have created the linear layout and we are calling the orientation as vertical. It means I want my root layout to have the vertical orientation. Then I am saying that I want to have the buttons, button 1, button 2 and button 3. So what is going to happen is those buttons will be getting added in the vertical fashion. Okay, so since we have the linear layout with the vertical orientation, those buttons will get added in the vertical fashion. And below those 3 buttons, what I want to do is I want to have one more layout. So you can nest the layouts inside one another. So you can have the linear layout, inside that you can have another layout. So you can have nesting. So as much as nesting you can do, it is possible. But we have to limit ourselves. We should not nest too much layouts, otherwise it would become much complex. But yes, it is allowed, I would say. And the widget, I have not given the padding, but yes, you can give it. So I have just given the padding to my parent layout. So if you want, you can also give the padding to the child layout. I got a question from Vivek. Droid screen is by default in the Android Studio, or we should download for Connect Physical. So no, Vivek, that will be a part of the Android Studio only. So you don't need to download that separately. Okay, so as you can see on the right hand panel, so you can see, so we have got 3 buttons, one below each other, button 1, button 2 and button 3. So since it is in vertical fashion, we are getting button 1, button 2 and button 3, one below each other. Then what I am doing is I am having one more linear layout which is having the orientation as horizontal. Okay, so in that case what will happen is I will have one more layout which will itself will be a children, but it will have its own sub-childrens which will be added in the horizontal fashion because we have one more layout. Then what I am doing is below that I am creating one more linear layout, but now what I am doing is I am adding one more concept that is called as layout weight. So yesterday one of the students had asked me a question, what if you want to add the contents in the layout and you want to assign the equal percentage. So let's say I want to add 3 buttons in the layout and I want to add the equal widths to those buttons. So what I would be doing in that case is I would be having button 1, button 2 and button 3, but you can see I am giving the width at 0 dp. So dp is like the pixels. Okay, so you are giving the width at 0 dp, but you are adding one attribute that is called as layout underscore weight. So what I'm saying, so layout weight is like the percentage. So button 1, button 2 and button 3 all are having equal weights. So equal weight means they will share the equal amount of screen space present there. So let's say now if my button 2 has the layout weight of 2. So what will happen is, so in my button 2, if I make the weight as 2, so now what is going to happen is button 2 will be twice as the width of the button 1, and that ultimately it will result in button 3 will be not shown on the UI because button 3 doesn't have any space now. So that's why that button 3 is gone out of the layout. But the weight defines that you want to share the equal space. So if you have weight 1 and on the second layout if you have weight 2 or the widgets, then that second widget will take the exactly double size of widget 1. But if both the widgets have got the separate similar weight, so in that case both the widgets will share the equal amount of space. So that is the concept of weight over here. So weight is normally used whenever you want to assign the equal amount of screen space to your children's. So normally we always give the weight value as 1. We would never give the weight value as 2 or 3. It is always like 1. So you can have something like this also. Button 1 layout weight as 2, button 2 layout weight as 2. But ultimately it is going to give you the same result because both buttons are having the equal weights. It is going to share the equal amount of screen space over there. So what will happen if we change the width 0 dp to 1 dp or more? So Abhijit, as per the Android rule, if you are using layout weight concept, you should always have the width at 0 dp. Otherwise your application, so if you run that application on the device, it would not look good. So always remember, whenever you are assigning the layout weight, you should not give the width. You should give the width at 0 dp. But whenever you are not giving the layout weight, you can assign some value to the width, like 100 dp, 200 dp, something like that. So dp is called as density independent pixels. So it is like pixels only, but what Android makes sure that whenever you give the values on dp, so it will look same on each and every screen size basically. Okay, and you can see finally what I'm doing is I'm having one more linear layout in which I'm having button 1, button 2 and button 3. So you can see I have got the root linear layout with the vertical orientation. In that I have got 2 more linear layout which are having the horizontal orientation. So you can have the linear layouts one inside one basically. You can have the nested linear layouts over there. So now you can see the layout over here. So you would find this layout is pretty much different than the linear layout. So what is the difference in this particular layout? So you are seeing the controls in this layout, but those controls are added in the random positions. So you have got the button which is in center, then you have got the button which is on the top left, then top right, bottom left, bottom right. Then you have got button 6 which is below button 1, but it is on the right hand side of button 1. So you can see basically you are adding the controls on the random positions. So to achieve that particular effect, we use the new kind of layout that is called as the relative layout. So we would not be using the linear layout in this case, we would be using the relative layout. So as you can see over here, what I am doing, I am creating the relative layout with the width and height as match parent. So what it is going to do, it is going to expand your layout to fill out the entire width of the screen and to fill out the entire height of the screen. Okay, then let's start with the button 1. So I'm creating the button 1, and inside the relative layout you have to remember one thing, you would not be giving the orientation, because relative layout doesn't work on the principle of the orientation. There is only one layout which works on the principle of the orientation, that is called as the linear layout. Mike, yes, I would also demonstrate some example apps screenshots using this layout. So if we see on the slides, so there are some example apps screenshots we have. Okay, so let me go on to the relative layout. So basically what I have done is I have taken the screenshots of the apps which we have created, but I would also make sure that I would also demonstrating the screenshots of the live apps which are present in the market. The problem is whenever we install any application, so by looking at the application we are not able to come to know what layout they have used, because one UI you can achieve using multiple layouts basically. Okay, so let's take an example of WhatsApp. So by looking at the WhatsApp, we would not able to determine what layout they have used. They might have used the linear layout, or they might have used the combination of the linear layout and relative layout, basically. So that's the thing. So that's why I pasted our own application screenshots over there. Okay, so as you can see over here, so we are having the buttons here, and let's start with the button 1. So what we are doing is we are not assigning any orientation like horizontal or vertical, but we are just assigning the relative layout. And the one new thing that you will see over here, for each and every button I have given the ID. So what is that ID is? ID is the unique identifier. So each button has the unique identifier, like button 1, button 2, button 3, something like that. So you are free to use any unique identifier which you would like, but normally I usually prefer giving it something like widget name and the ID. So button 1. And I've got a question from Mike. Can we use two layouts simultaneously? I mean first linear layout and the linear layout we can have. So yes, guys, absolutely. So as I said, you can have the support for the nested layout. So you can nest the relative layout inside the linear layout, or you can nest the linear layout inside the relative layout. So yes, that is all possible. So those layout, they are also the widgets. So you can have the one layout inside another layout. So that is pretty much possible. Okay, so yeah, so I'm starting with the button 1. So we have given the ID as button 1. We are giving the width as wrap content, and we are giving the height as the wrap content. Then what we are doing is we are giving the text to our button, so as button 1. And now you would see two more attributes I have added over there, that is align parent top and align parent left. So that is the beauty of using relative layout. You can assign these attributes. You can say something like, I want this button to get added in align parent top, it means on the top position, and at the same time I want this button to get added on the left hand side of the screen. So in that case what will happen? Your button will get added on the top, and it will simultaneously it will also get added on the left. So similar concept to the button 2. So now so as you can see in the button, so we are having the button 2. Now we are giving the button 2 as the width and height as the wrap content and wrap content. I'm giving the text as button 2, and there we are adding one more attribute, align parent top, and align parent right. So on the button 1, we are having the attribute called as align parent top and align parent left. On the button 2, we are having the attribute as align parent top and align parent right. So in that case, what will happen? Your button 2 will get added on the right hand side of the screen and on the top of the screen. And your button 1 will get added on the left hand side of the screen and on the top of the screen over there. So in that way, you can have the buttons. Now let's talk about button 3, which you can see at the very bottom of the screen. So similar concept I have applied over there. So I'm giving the width and height as wrap content. I'm assigning the text as button 3. And now we are having something like align parent left and align parent bottom. It means you are saying that I want to add that button at the bottom of the screen, and also I want to add that button on the left hand side. So in that case, what will happen? Your button will get added on the bottom and on the left hand side. So similar, it is true for the button 4. So we are saying I want to add that button on the bottom of the screen, but similarly I also want to add that button on the align parent right. It means on the right hand side of the screen. So in that case, what will happen? Your button 4 will get added in the bottom of the screen, and also it will get added on the right hand side of the screen over there. So the attributes that we have applied are align parent top is equal to true and align parent right is equal to true. So yes, so that is absolutely correct. So in that case, your button 2 added on the top. So for the button 4, we added something like align parent bottom is equal to true and align parent right is equal to true. So in that case, what happened? Now your button is added on the bottom and it is added on the right hand side. Abhijit, we cannot use the percentage in the alignment. So unfortunately, we cannot do that. But what you can do is you can assign the margin left, margin right. You can assign the margins to your button. But again, you would not able to assign the margins in the percentage wise manner. You can just give some hardcode value and you can check how it looks on the device. So it will be like trial and error. So linear layout is only layout which supports the concept of the percentage allocation, that is weight. Other layouts doesn't support it. And Abhijit, I would also explain. I would be also adding the margins. So yes, definitely, I will be doing that. Okay. So I was on the button 4, which was added on the bottom, and it was added on the align parent right. So now let's take a look at the button 5. So now button 5, I wanted to add the button 5 in the center of the screen. So for that, what I did, I created the button 5. I given the width and height as wrap content, and I said something like layout center in parent true. So in that way, what happened? Now your button is added in the center of the screen. So what we did, we created the button 5 and we added the attribute called as layout center in parent true. So in that way, what happened? Now your button 5 is added in the center of the screen over there. So it is really simple attribute and really useful attribute. So whenever you want to add something in the center of the screen, so normally when we create the application, we create these splash screens. So when you open the application, your company logo will be shown over there in the center. So what you can do, you can create the image view. You would put your image, company image, and you can just say center in parent true. So what will happen? Ultimately, that image will be added in the center of the screen. Okay, so once you add those buttons in the center of the screen, so now comes the tricky part. Now let's say you want to add the button, but you want to add that button diagonal to the button 1. Okay, so where you want to add that button? You want to add that button on the bottom hand side, and you want to add that button to the right hand side of the button 1. So what I have done over here, so I have created button 6. I have given the width and height as wrap content. Text, I have given it as button 6, and you are saying that this button will be on right hand side of button 1 and it will be below button 1. So you can see now whatever IDs that you have assigned to the buttons, you are referencing those IDs. So I'm saying that I'm adding the attribute layout to right of, and I'm giving the ID of button 1. So at the same moment, I'm also saying that it should be on the right hand side of button 1, but it should also below button 1, so that it will add it in the diagonal fashion. So you can see the similar concept in button 7 also. So right now I'm saying I want that button on the above button 3 and I want it on the right hand side of button 3. So what it will do, it will add it on the above button 3 and on the right hand side of the button 3 over there. Okay, so have a look at code snippet for the button 6 and button 7, and let me ask you the question. Let's say I want to add one more button, okay, and that button should be diagonal to my button 5 and it should be above. So how can you do that? Okay, so similar to button 7, if I want to use the same concept to my button 5, so above button 5 and to the right hand side of the button 5 I want to add the button. So what code snippet you will write? So you would be writing to right hand side of button 5 and at the same moment you will also write layout above button 5. So in that case it will be added in the top diagonal manner over there. Okay, so let me show it to you guys how you can do that. So what I'll do is I'll go at the bottom, I'll just make a copy of any existing button. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm just copy pasting the code of the existing button. I will give it an ID as button 8. Text also I will mention as 8. And I would say that button will be below button 5. So I'm saying that I want that button should be below button 5, but at the same moment I will also add one attribute that is called as center horizontal. So you can see now what is happening. Now I'm getting the button 8, but that is by default added on the left hand side. So I will have to add one more attribute that is called as the center underscore horizontal. Oh, so the attribute is center horizontal true. So what it will get added? So it will get added in the center horizontal fashion and it will get added below button 5 over there. And Shanti, so ID name will start with plus when you are assigning the ID to the button. So when you are just referencing the ID of the other buttons, you would just say @ID. So the difference between plus and non-plus is, so whenever you are assigning the ID to the existing control, in this case button 8, I'm adding plus. But whenever you are saying that I want that button should be below button 5, so I would not write plus over there because you are just referencing the ID of another button. So that's why we are not writing plus over there. Okay, so next layout we have got, it is called as the frame layout. So now, so we talked about the linear layout and we talked about the relative layout. So normally those layouts are used whenever you have more than one children's. But whenever you have such a requirement as, now you want to have a layout, but that layout will contain only one children. So in that case, what we do is we use the frame layout. So as we can see over there, frame layout shines in the layout army whenever you want to add only one children inside the parent. So if you have got the requirement as in the screen, you just have to add one button. So what I would be doing, instead of creating linear layout or the relative layout, I would be adding the frame layout over there. So frame layout can also contains multiple children, but it is more preferred whenever you want to add just one children to the layout. So in that case, we use the frame layout. So frame layout is normally used in splash screen or where we want to add the full screen web view to. Okay. So normally, if you have used a lot of Android applications, you would be seeing the splash screen that comes. So what that splash screen contains? It just contains the company logo or the company name. So it just have one control, either image view or either text view. So in that case, they use the frame layout. But whenever you want to add more than one widgets inside the layout, you would not be using frame layout. You would be using any other layout like linear layout or the relative layout. Okay, so let's go through the code snippet for the relative layout. Sorry, frame layout. Okay, so now you can see. So what I have done over here, I am trying to add 4 children. So just to give you the idea on what will happen if you try to add 4 children inside the frame layout. So what is happening is those children will get added on top of each other. Okay, so you cannot have one children beside other children. Those children will ultimately get added on top of each other because frame layout can accommodate only one children at a time. So if you try to add any other children, they will get added on the top of the previous children. So let me take you through the code snippet so that it will be more clear to you. So you can see, so what I'm doing over here, I'm creating the frame layout and I'm creating views. So you can see now what I'm doing is I'm giving the hard-coded width and hard-coded height. So first view, which is the bottom view, I'm putting the width and height as 250 dp. So I want that view should be having the larger width and larger height. Then I'm adding one more view with the different background. So that background you can see those are called as the hexadecimal colors. Okay. So hexadecimal colors are the one of the type of representation of the colors. So if you just go on the Google, you would find there are a lot of websites which shows you the hexadecimal colors. So you just have to paste that color name over here. So second view, I'm having the width and height as 200 dp and I'm having the layout margin as 10 dp. So when you say layout margin, so it will get automatically applied to the top, left, bottom and right. So layout margin means applied on all the 4 edges over there. Mike, that is called as the alpha value. So first 2 digits which we are seeing over there, those are called as the alpha. So now the alpha is 1. So we are written FF. So even if you omit that, that would not cause an issue. So those are the hexadecimal colors with the alpha value. So first 2 digit denotes the alpha value of that color. Okay. Then we are adding the third view, which is having the width and height as 150 dp. So again that view will get added on the top of the second view. Then we are adding the fourth view. So that fourth view will get added on the top of the third view. So you can see as and when I'm starting adding the views, I'm trying to reduce the width and height of those views. So at the view at the very bottom, it will have the larger width and height. View on top of that bottom view, it will have somewhat little width and height. The view which is on top of that another view, it will have lesser width and height. So you can see. So what I'm doing, why I'm doing that, because if we keep the equal width and height, so ultimately you would only able to see the top view. You would not able to see the bottom views. So that's the reason we are just assigning those views. And Abhi, I'm not assigning any I would say margin to the first view. You can do that, but I'm not doing that basically. And Mike, in the frame layout, you don't have any control over the positioning and all. So no, you cannot do that basically. So you can just add the view and you can give the margins and padding. But you would not able to say center in parent, align parent bottom, align parent right. So no, you cannot do that, unfortunately. So that's why frame layout is only preferred whenever you want to create this splash screen with the image, company logo or something like that. So we create frame layout in that way. Okay, so I would say 99% of the time you would be using frame layout whenever you want to create this splash screen, basically. So I got a question from Shanti. Can we have the background attribute in other layout or with the other? So yes, Shanti, the background attribute is available on each and every layout. So you can give the background to your relative layout also. You can give the background to your linear. So yes, for each and every widget you can assign the background. Table layout. So if you have done the HTML programming, or I would say basic HTML programming, you might be aware about the table layout. So table layout works on the concept of rows and columns. So as we know what is a table, so even if you have created a table in Microsoft Word, you must be knowing normally we have the rows and we have got the columns. So whenever you want to add the children in the row and column wise manner, you would always prefer using the table layout. So each row in the table layout is represented by the table row, which can hold virtually any number of children. So you can have n number of children in a row depending on your screen size. And whenever you try to add the children inside the table row, it will always get added in the horizontal manner. So you have to always remember, whenever you will try to add the children inside the table row, it will always get added in the horizontal manner. And there is always a support for call span and the row span. So what is an call span and row span is, so let's say I want to have a requirement. So as you can see on the first figure, I want to have first row, but in which I will just have one child, but that child should span itself so that it will take 2 columns. Then in the second row, I will have two childs, and each child will have one column. So that is called as call span. So in the call span, you can stretch your child so that it can span multiple columns over there. And same is applicable to the row span. So in the row span, you can span your child so that it can span multiple rows at once. Okay, so that is the concept of row span and call span. So unfortunately, Android doesn't support the row span, so row span cannot be implemented in the table layout. But Android has got the support for the call span. So call span you will see normally, so in the login screen, so you have got the edit text, and then you have got the buttons below, that is submit and reset. So you would see that those buttons are having two columns. First column will be used by the submit button, and second column will be used by the reset button. But those text fields, they are stretching themselves to two columns basically. And Abhijit, I would again explain what is mean by the call span and the row span. So basically the call span means, so whenever you want to have a requirement, or whenever you have a requirement such that the children which you are adding inside the table, it should span multiple columns. It should stretch itself to the multiple columns. So you can see in the figure 1, we have got two rows. In the second row, we have got two columns. In the first row also, we have got two columns, but what that children is doing, children is spanning itself to those two columns. So you would feel that in the row 1, we are just having one column. So what it is doing, it is taking the space for both the columns. So that is called as spanning. And since it is taking the space for both the columns, so that's why we will call it as the call span. And row span means it is trying to take the space for the two rows over there. So Abhijit, yes. So you can say it is a merging. So yes. So I would say that is a very accurate word that you have used. So that will be called as the merging. So in the first row, we are merging two columns, and in the second figure, we are merging two rows over there. Okay. So let's go to the example. So let's say I want to achieve something like this. Okay, so Rajsekhar, what is meant by call span is, call span means you are trying to merge two columns. So you are creating a widget and it is trying to merge two columns. So that will be called as the call span. So in this figure, if you see, I am having the button. So if you see the third row over there, in the third row, we have a button 1, but that button 1, it is merging two columns. So it is equal to the width of the two columns. So that will be called as the call span basically. And can it merge more than two? So yes, Abhijit, absolutely. You can merge more than two columns also. So I will be explaining you that shortly in the code. Okay, so as you can see in this particular figure, so here we have got four table rows. So we have got table row 1, table row 2, table row 3, and table row 4. Okay, so let me take you through the code snippet so that it will be more clear to you. So let me open that project. So I will close that existing project. I will open the project and I will point out to the table layout. Okay, so again I'm getting that rendering issue. So what I'll do is I'll just wait for that Gradle task to get finished. And I got a question from Vivek. What is a Gradle? So Vivek, Gradle is the build tool. So what task Gradle do? So it converts, so it compiles your code and finally it converts your code into the executable code. So you can run it on the mobile. So Gradle, what it is doing, basically it is behind the scene, it is compiling your code. Okay, so I will wait till that it is compiling your code. Okay, so yeah. So let me take you through the code snippets. So as you can see over here, basically, so what is happening is I'm creating the table layout with the match parent and match parent, and actually there is no need to give this attribute, I would say. Okay, so I'm just giving the table layout with the width and height as match parent. Then I'm creating one table row over there. And in the table though, what I'm doing, I'm adding the buttons. So I'm adding button 1 with the text and I'm adding button 2. So since they are getting added in the single row, so single table row, so what will happen? They will get added beside each other. Then what I'm doing, I'm creating one more table row. In that what I'm doing, I'm adding button 1, button 2 and button 3. So again, those are getting added in the single row. So what will happen? They will get added beside each other. So later you have got the table row in which you have a button, but now you are saying that layout span is equal to 2. So when you say layout span is equal to 2, it means you are saying that button 2, so you are saying that whatever button will get added in the third row, it will span itself to the 2 columns. So what I am saying, it would span itself to the 2 columns over there. Okay, so if I say layout span as 3 over there, so what will happen? It will span itself to 3 columns. So as simple as that. And finally what I'm doing, I'm adding 4th button in the 4th row and I'm saying that layout column as 2. So column counting always starts from 0. So you are saying that I want to add that button, but it should be present in the 0, 1, 2. So ultimately it should added in the 3rd column basically. Okay, so I got a question. So let's say we have 3 columns in the first row and 5 columns in the bottom. So yeah, so that's a really good question which is asked by the Mike. So Mike is asking, so if you have the first row which has got 3 columns and the second row which is having the 5 columns. So Mike, the basic column count of the table will be 5. So the basic table column count of the table will be always equal to the highest number of columns which it has. Okay, so that's a table layout. So nothing complex, just 2 attributes that you have to remember. It is layout span and Android layout column. So layout span defines how many columns you want to span, and layout underscore column defines in which column you want to explicitly add the control. So here we are passing value as 2. It means we are saying that I want to add that. So don't misunderstand it as second column. So column counting always starts from the 0. So layout column 2 means actually 3. 0, 1, 2. So it will be added in the 3rd column over there.